Not sure what's going on. We need to leave that. There we go. All right, guys, thank you for your patience with this new system. For some reason, I have 2 accounts and the links get all messed up. So we're going to fix that. Hopefully we won't have that issue moving forward. So today's about market update. It'll be, I know you guys are hearing a lot of things out there, so I'm not going to give you just more things. I'm just going to kind of summarize what is happening locally. I'm also going to be playing a video for you. And I probably need to find the password because I think it's not going to let me in, but I'm going to be playing a video for you just from keeping current matters. Gary, can you go into, do you know how to get into Trello?
Yes.
And can you get the password and the sign in password and text it to me for keeping
current matters?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get it.
Yeah, because I have a feeling it's going to make me sign in.
Okay. So Liv, you're getting it?
Yeah,
No,
I'll get
you
it
are,
for
or somebody is.
Or we're
just-
racing. We're racing.
Text it to me if you could, please, because I didn't have
Okay.
time messing around with the tech to grab it. So, but anyway, today is just, you know, a market update, but I wanted to ask you guys first, you're out in the field, I'm out in the field, probably not as much as you at this point. Can you guys give me kind of a vibe on what the clients are saying, what your buyers are, you know, maybe you're doing open houses, people are talking to you. What are you hearing out there on the streets? Nothing? You're not hearing anything?
Most of
different feedback. Some people it's not the time, they're unsure of what the market's going to do, they feel like the rates are too high. It's been a handful of things that I heard over last weekend.
yeah,
Okay.
my buyers all want to offer under asking.
Oh my gosh. I'm a listing
Yeah.
agent on some deals, and the mindset is that why would the buyer want to pay, you know, even less than full price where we have it priced right for the market, where the market is today, or even a little ahead of the market when I'm pricing now. And they still want to go lower because they say, hey, why would the buyer want to buy a home when it's going to be worth less in 30 days? So they're coming way down on their offers. How do we educate around that, right? So we can talk about some of that today. After I go through the updates, I'd like to circle back and just kind of talk about what you guys are doing as far as strategy to help people to understand. Now, I send comps to the, like if I'm the listing agent, just for example, I'm sending comps to the listing agent and I'm talking about how I priced it below the comps. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So I think showing your buyers that is a good idea. But I want to hear your input too. But I'm just kind of gathering intel right now on what you're hearing out there. What you're experiencing. So they want to offer low. People are like, hey, we're going to wait, those kind of things. Hopefully you guys know the scripts to help get them over that hump, but we'll talk about that too. Anything else? Anything else?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of people talking about, you know, they're not sure where the market's going to head, that they think things are going to crash, that they're going to wait till it crashes and then they're going to buy. So that's something I've been hearing pretty frequently on my calls.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate the input on that. Anybody else before we move on into this market update and hopefully some information to give some solutions. And then obviously we have scripts that we're practicing every week that are relevant to what's happening in the market. So we invite you to those classes Mondays and Wednesdays, 9 to 10, to come on and just work dialogue with us. So we can all work this out together and be more successful and help your clients get past some of these fears that they're feeling. Okay. Anybody else before I move on? No?
Tina, this is Renee. So
Hi.
I've been writing offers for buyers, and I've got a buyer right now that needs all of his closing costs paid, and twice now we haven't gotten the property, but we've been asked to please stay as a backup. So both properties in Oceanside, which, you know, we wouldn't have seen that before, right? And so I just tell my buyers, don't get discouraged. We will get you one. Let's just keep writing. It's a numbers game right now.
Okay.
So I think you keep moving and you keep finding those buyers that are willing to write and really, you know, willing to get out there and do this market. I honestly think most of these buyers, we can show them data and we can show them facts of what's going on right now. But in their head, if they are just dead set on waiting, then move on to the next.
Yeah, if they're dead set at the end of the day, if you can't get them back to their why and it's not strong enough, if it's strong enough, they're going to move forward. They're going to listen to your advice. But and you lead with data, not drama. Okay. So guys, don't commiserate with your clients. You lead with data, not drama. And you talk to them about all the fear in the market, right? And we're going to watch a video today that hopefully will help with some of that as well. So, thank you for sharing that. But yes, we must be working with motivated buyers at all times, and they must have a strong enough why to get through anyhow. Okay. Single family homes for sale right now, as of last night at around 10 p.m. when I was preparing this, is at 3,278 units, up from 3,005 last month, this time when we did the meeting. So we got a small amount of tick up on inventory there. Homes are still selling. Obviously, there's 1,561 homes pending. That's actually 100 more than last month. I didn't post that, but I do remember the number. 100 more than last month pending. So the pendings are up slightly from last month. We're closing at about the same pace as we were last month, maybe a little bit higher. Actually, this is lower. Sorry, this is about 50 units lower than last month. We're at 1,714 per month closing, which creates a 1.9 months worth of inventory, up from 1.6 months of inventory from last month. So we're pretty almost even of what's going on. Nothing's going gangbusters up, nothing's going gangbusters down. It's just kind of floating like this. Very few more still selling homes though, as you can see. Pendings are at 1,561. So that means we're selling. We also have stuff that closed. So we are having transactions happen. And there's going to be, this video is going to shed some great light on where we truly are, okay? Because the last 2 years were just an anomaly, and they'll talk about that. All right, condos. There was some changes in condos for sure. The on market is at 1,390, up from 1,187. And by the way, for both categories, if you guys remember the beginning of the year, we had 2 weeks of inventory. Okay. We had 2 weeks of inventory. It was an impossible market for our buyers. We had a lot of eager buyers, but we didn't have the homes for them. Now we have some not so eager buyers and we're starting to get some opportunities. So we just got to educate them. We need to educate them to get them all to meet in the middle. So condos for sale are at 1,390, as I said, up from last month at 1,187. Here's the thing though, the actual last month, we were at 2.43 months of inventory last month based on how the sales are going. So that means the sales are up this month, creating a 1.56 months worth of inventory. We've closed 881 closed per month. So we're actually closing a few more condos than we were even last month. They were just kind of just sitting there last month. Now they're starting to take off. And maybe is that because interest rates have gone up and people are resorting to buying condos? I don't really know. You guys probably have more experience on that right now than I do. Any questions on those two slides? Anything that you see that you would like to ask me about or talk about? Nada? Well, it's good to know these numbers. Why is it good to know these numbers, you guys? For your clients, right? And also for your own sanity to kind of know exactly where we're at any given moment. So remembering these numbers and letting people know that, hey, you know what? Condos are a little bit more competitive right now. This month, they're really popped up in sales. We still have a lot of opportunity for you, but just know that it is more of a competitive market right now. The other thing I wanted to mention before I go on into this video is when I go on to the Altos reports and I'm looking at various zip codes, they are indicating that there's a lot of price decreases, meaning there's, listings are taking a hit on the price. Are you guys seeing that as well in some of the zip codes you're working in? I imagine you are. So I just want to remind you that the average across the nation of what it should be in a normal situation is about 30% of the inventory takes a price cut. I was at a listing appointment yesterday in 92029, and it's at 60% right now. 60% of the inventory is taking a price cut hit, right? So, and market times are increasing. I'm seeing anywhere from 25 to about 40 days, depending on the zip code. So again, it is a micro market, And I encourage that you look at those Altos reports when you're working with buyers, and you kind of have a read on what's happening for negotiations reasons, for demand. There's also a buyer demand scale in there that you look at, and you can let them know that the demand is way down over last month and we've got great opportunity. 60% of the market is reducing their prices. Let's go out and act accordingly, right? So you can set your clients up. If the zip code says there's only 20% of the inventory that is reducing their prices, and the demand is really close to last month, and they're all still, by the way, in a seller's market. Once the demand gets down to a certain point, it becomes a buyer's market. So we're still in a seller's market in the majority of the zip codes that we work in, that I've seen anyway. I haven't studied all of them, but you can let your clients know per zip code by pulling that Altos report. You can take a copy with you, and you can talk to them about what's happening and how you can strategically write offers. So you're not out of step of the market, right? Just by hearsay or rumor, or you're leading with data, you're not leading with drama. All right. So on KCM, we do have a sign in on Trello, but I don't think it's included on Hey Siri. And I would like to get the login for keeping current matters on Hey Siri, because there's a lot of great tools in here that you guys can start using. But I'm going to go into it, and I want you to use these reports once you see the video, and I'll show you around a little bit on the website. There's great social media posts that you can do. They're completely done for you. We just need to check with Liv, because it is Siri's account. I think you guys can, as you use it, just put your picture in and change things up for your profile, for your actual pieces that maybe you want to print or email out, if it's something that's, I guess, labeled with your information. We need to look at that. I'm pretty sure you can do it. And then just, the next person can change it to theirs. But again, we just need to have Liv look into that and see if the account can be flexible that way. Liv, you might even be on this call. I don't know. So send out to your sphere of influence, follow up boss leads, Instagram, Facebook, etc. You guys, we got to constantly play our part in educating the market on what is the truth. What is the truth? And we need to be the flag flyers of the truth. We need to get out there and make sure that people understand what is really going on. Okay. So that's the point that I want to make today, is that we must be educators in this market. All right. I'm going to go into this, hopefully. All right. Let's see if it goes right into it. Boom. It worked. Unbelievable. All right. So I'm going to play a 20-minute video. I want you guys to pay close attention. Then I'll show you around this website a little bit, and then we'll figure out what we need to do about, seeing if we can make this account work for everybody. All right, so let's do this. So we're going to play this video right now. Everybody kick back.
Welcome to the July monthly market report. My name is David Childers, and for the next 20 or so minutes, Kate Rosenbeck and I are going to take you through some of the biggest topics in this shifting market. For just a minute, I have to brag on the KCM content and research team. They do such a good job of bringing insights to the monthly market report every month. And this month is no different. And we're certainly seeing a market right now that is very different than the last 2 years. So you're going to want to hang on and list all of this about what's happening in the market right now. But we do this every month, the monthly market report, so that you can be the most educated professional on these topics. So let's hop in here. I'm going to start with this topic of economic slowdown. This is a topic that you see in the news and consumers hear everywhere. We certainly hear about it in our business, and what would it mean to our business. I want to talk about that, in the talks of recession, the talks of all that, and really, how does that impact real estate? There's a lot of this that we can't control, but what can we control? We certainly can control how we educate and our confidence of the knowledge we have about economic slowdown. And I'll start here from the Wall Street Journal. Recession fears surge among CEOs, a new survey suggests. They go on to say 3/4 of global CEOs say that we are in a recession or will be in the next 12 to 18 months, according to a new survey. So, there's that widely held definition of a recession, 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. Well, we saw negative GDP in the first quarter. And in the second quarter here, we just wrapped that up as I'm filming this. There are forecasts coming out of the Atlanta Fed saying we will be in negative GDP here in the second quarter. Some of the estimates have been very, very low, what they would call anemic growth in this country, 0.3%. So, as we look at this, I think in the rearview mirror, we're going to say, hey, the economy is slowing down, likely in a recession, but that as of today is not out there, but I think there's a high likelihood that it will be. So what can we control? What I just talked about? Well, there's a lot outside of our control when it comes to this topic, but there are things in our control, like how in the past has our business, the real estate business, been affected by an economic slowdown, more specifically recessionary times. So I want to talk about that for the next few minutes and give you some of the latest information. And I'll start right here with mortgage specialists. Throughout history, during a recessionary period, interest rates go up at the beginning of the recession, but in order to come out of recession, interest rates are lowered to stimulate the economy moving forward. Historically, we've seen a repeated uptick in interest rates followed by lower interest rates. So if you've been in the business a while, this is not something that I think is going to surprise you. Maybe if you're new to the business, you don't know that, then that's typically what happens in an economic cycle. But what I want to give you are a couple of graphics that really crystallize this thought of what happens during recessionary times. And we're going to do this by looking in the rearview mirror, and that's not always indicative of what's going to happen in the future, but we can learn from what's happened in the past, and then we can apply our wisdom, our local market expertise, everything that we bring to the table through that. So if we go back and we look at these prior recessionary periods, I would start right here. This is a graphic going all the way back to the early 70s. And this outlines in blue there, the graph mark there, the 30-year fixed interest rate. And then the boxes there that are highlighted in yellow are recessionary periods. So if I was talking to somebody about this, I might use this graphic. I might have it on my phone or on a tablet or something like that. And I would walk them through, this is what typically interest rates have looked like in a recessionary period. And I'm going to give you another look at it here in just a minute, but I think it starts to bring this perspective. And certainly here on the other end, the rise in interest rates that we've seen more recently here in the first 6 months of this year. But if we break this down and sort of convert it to a table versus this visual chart, so I'm going to use the visual chart, but then I'm going to break it down by this table right here and say, okay, in each recession that we've had in this country, going back to the early 80s, what has happened to the mortgage interest rate? And so this gives you that from when it actually happened, how long it happened, and what was the starting interest rate, and what did it fall to? And there's one thing that every one of these recessions has in common, and it's that in each instance, mortgage rates fell. And there are reasons for that, and I'm going to go back into that in just a minute, but if we can use this graphic, not necessarily just my opinion, not what I think or what I've seen, but this is verified information. We can show them graphically, we can show them in a table here. Here's what happens in a recessionary period. So the reason I bring that up is not to say that in every recession going forward that's going to happen. We don't have a crystal ball and can say that. But when somebody asks, how would a recession affect the real estate business? Well, what we've seen in the past is that interest rates have been lowered. And here's, to take it just a step further, here's what specifically that's meant. Over the past 5 recessions, mortgage rates have fallen an average of 1.8 percentage points from the peak seen during the recession to the trough. And in many cases, they continue to fall after the fact, as it takes some time to turn things around, even when the recession is technically over. Okay, let's pause here for a second. And again, I want to remind you of a few things. A lot of you that understand this technically will know this, but the reason for this, all the work the Fed is doing right now is to tame inflation. They're raising the Fed funds rate to tame inflation. Okay, to do that, they have to slow down the economy. And you've heard them talk about trying to engineer the soft landing. We've talked about that before. If you don't engineer the soft landing, then you end in recession. That's highly likely. Going back to that first survey that the CEO said we are in or heading towards a recession, because the reason they say we're either in one is because it will be identified by what's in the rearview mirror. Remember, I said 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. But if they don't engineer that soft landing, we go into recession. And what does the Fed then know? The impact of housing in this country is tremendous. We've shared the average impact of a new build, an existing home that sells, and the economic impact all across the country. Housing will lead the economy out of a recession, and the US economy will not recover until housing leads the way out. So that's the reason why you see these cyclical, events happen when it comes to an economic slowdown. The graphic that we certainly have used, and I think is very, very important right now, is to remember to reinforce that recession doesn't equal a housing crisis. A lot of you have gotten this graphic out there. A lot of you have been vocal about this and shared it in different places and been talking about it. I think we need to continue to do that. I think this is going to ratchet up, certainly in the talk as we look back and say, we're likely in a recession. And this is the survey that goes back again all the way to the early 80s and says, again, what happened to housing prices? We just looked at interest rates. What happened to housing prices? 4 out of the 6 times we were in a recession, homes appreciated. 2 times they fell, once, marginally in the early 90s, and the other time was in 2008. And the thing I would say here is ever since 2008, the word recession is taken on a new meaning for people, and for very good reason. There were a lot of people that were hurt, a lot of people that were impacted, a lot of people that saw family members that were hurt during the 2008 recession. Our business was at the epicenter. Many of us that were in the business certainly remember that, and certainly remember the times that we went through during that. But I think we have to have a solid understanding of what's happening. But in another topic that I'm going to cover before I turn it over to Kate in just a minute, we're going to talk about, should I wait to buy a home? Both of these topics, recession and the topic I'm going to cover in just a minute, should I wait to buy a home, are emotionally based topics. And I want to just acknowledge right now that we're talking very factually about an emotionally based topic. Be grounded factually, but don't miss the reality that this is an emotional topic for many, many people. I'm gonna turn it over to Kate here in just a minute to let her take it away on inventory. All this moderation in the market, we're seeing a rise in inventory. So I'm gonna turn it over to Kate and I'll be back in just a second.
Thank you so much, David. I think as we're watching the economic pressures around us and people are still wondering, I still want to buy a home. Are there going to be options available? It's been such a tight market on inventory over the past couple of years. And everyone wants to know what's the latest with inventory. So that's the update I'm going to walk you through next. And we're going to start with a breakdown of a few key trends that we're seeing in the market and then lead into how that's impacting inventory. So I want to start with what we're seeing on offers received. We're seeing that number decline. It peaked around an average of 5.5 offers in April, then it dropped to 5, and now we're seeing about 4.2 with the latest number released in June. And what that means is, this rising mortgage rate environment is really starting to soften buyer demand. Now, think about it though, 4.2 offers per home sold is still far above a pre-pandemic norm. So definitely still a competitive market, but we're seeing a little bit of that softening or that moderation. What we're also seeing is the offers over asking is declining. So a month ago, 61% of offers were over asking price. And that number has softened now to 55% over asking price on the average home sold. Now think about that too. That's still more than half of offers over asking. So certainly a softening or a moderation, but definitely not a huge decline. Now, what we're also seeing right now is that sales are softening as well. So a slower pace of sales. I'm going to spend a lot of time breaking this down today, show you some visuals on why sales are lowering as well. And with all of these factors in play, what does that mean for inventory? That's the big question. Inventory is on the rise. So that means more options for buyers coming to the market. And I'm going to walk you through this today. So let's start with a quote from Mark Fleming. It says, "There has been a pickup in the inventory that we've seen recently, but it's not from a big increase in new listings." So put a pin in that thought because we're going to get back to that, but rather a slowdown in the pace of sales. And remember that month supply measures the inventory of sales relative to the pace of sales. Same inventory, fewer sales means more months supply. So let's take a deeper look at what this means. So we know that the month supply of inventory of homes is increasing. It was record low in January of this year at 1.6 months. And we've ticked up to the latest data showing us 2.6 months of inventory. Now, that's not a huge increase, but it certainly means more options for buyers when there's more inventory on the market. Now, remember, a balanced market, however, is 6 months of inventory, and we haven't seen that since 2012. So we're nowhere out of the woods on where we need to be with inventory to meet that balanced market, but we're certainly moving in the right direction. So why is that? That's the big question. Well, new monthly listing counts are increasing. That's what you can see here from Realtor.com. You can see the green bars are last year and the blue bars are this year. So, you know, what two things really pop out to me when I look at this graph? I see the blue bars are higher, so more new inventory, more new listings coming to the market this year, and they're ticking up at a faster pace. So April to May, those blue bars from this year, that's increasing at a faster pace than we did last year at that time. So that's huge. That means that there are more new listings coming to the market for buyers, and there are more options available. But what's happening at the same time, and this is what you heard in that quote from Mark Fleming, is that the pace of sales is slowing. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is the existing home sales seasonally adjusted annual rate from NAR. And what you can see in the green bar over on the right is that we are projected to end the year at 5.4 million home sales by the end of 2022, if we continue at the pace we're selling homes today. Now, we know that that pace has softened because of rising rates, economic pressures, inflationary pressures, all the things that are impacting the housing market right now. So the pace of sales is slowing. And when you compare that to last year and the year before, we have to remember that it's slower than then, because those were absolutely incredible years. They were an anomaly in the housing market. But where we are today in that green bar is returning more towards the direction of those pre-pandemic years, the 2018, 2019. And we have to remember that those were great years in real estate. So when we think about this contextually, yes, the pace of sales is slowing, but we're slowing back to the pre-pandemic years, which were fantastic years for the housing market. So with new listings coming to the market and the pace of sales slowing, what does that mean? It means, let's start here with this quote from Lawrence Yun. Home sales have essentially returned to the levels seen in 2019, prior to the pandemic, after 2 years of gangbuster performance. I think that's very well said, that we certainly had outstanding performance the past 2 years. So what this means is that there are more options available, more active inventory on the market. Danielle Hale from Realtor.com says, active inventory continued to grow, rising 21% above 1 year ago. That's huge for buyers, right? In other words, we're starting to add more options, but the market needs even more before home shoppers have a selection that's roughly equivalent to the pre-pandemic housing market. So we still have far more buyers than we have sellers. That's continuing to put upward pressure on prices. We know that to be true. Not enough options out there, but certainly more coming to the market. So what does this look like for the rest of the year? Well, Realtor.com has reforecasted for the rest of 2022. And I think this image is a great one to share in your sphere. It's the 2022 forecast update on inventory. And what it shows us is that at the beginning of the year, Realtor.com projected that we would have a 0.3% increase in inventory, so very small. They have reforecasted for the rest of the year a 15% increase in inventory. A lot of that largely has to do with the softening or the slowing in the pace of sales and that uptick in new listings. So more inventory coming to the market. They're seeing more in the projections. You know, that's going to create options for buyers. And this is the message we need to share. We need to get out there and let buyers know that more options are going to be coming available. Now, what we also know is what this means. We should start to see less competition, fewer bidding wars, and therefore less upward price pressure. Let's talk about that in a moment. In fact, a simple analysis shows that a 1 month increase in the month supply, which is exactly what we've seen this year, results in a 3% decline in annualized house price growth. And our preliminary house price index is already showing moderation in house prices in April. So what we're seeing is, with a softening in demand, more new listings, more slower pace in sales, more inventory is available. And when there's more inventory available, that tug between buyer demand and supply lessens. That means less upward pressure on prices. So prices are still projected to increase. just at a more moderate rate. That's already what we're starting to see. Prices are still ticking up, but at a slower, more moderate pace. So we are going to see an increase in prices, no doubt, that because demand is so low, or sorry, supply is so low. But what we are seeing is a lessening in that price pressure. So really, really fantastic information to share with your buyers to make sure that you get out there. And I think the message to say is, look, it was impossible a year ago to find a home. I get that. And if you stepped out of the market a year ago, step back in, because it's still going to be difficult, but it's certainly not going to be impossible. So we have more options available in the market. You know, now is the time to jump back into the process and really find that home that you've been looking for. So with more inventory coming to the market, I think buyers want to know, should I buy a home right now? And I'm going to pass it back over to you, David, so you can answer that question.
Thanks, Kate. And certainly inventory, I think, will be, continue to rise, but will be the bright spot in this, real estate economy right now. We look back in time, many people were, frustrated over the last couple of years in the inability to find a home. And I think rising inventory is going to change that. So let's move to our last topic here. I talked about this just a minute ago on, should I buy a home? You could really kind of rephrase this and say, should I wait to buy a home? Many people talking about that. Does it make sense? I think this is even bigger than the interest rate question right now. The average mortgage payment has gone up significantly, and that's a barrier to home ownership for so many people, and it causes others to pause, and we're certainly seeing that in the market. But more than that, nobody wants to buy anything that's going to be worth less 6 months, 12 months down the road, right? I don't care what you're talking about. You don't want to buy anything that's going to lose value significantly. Maybe there's some things you could argue, maybe a car you buy, you kind of understand that, but most people don't want that in their homes. All people don't want that in their homes. They want that to be an appreciating asset. And so let's talk about that. And, I'd start here and break down sort of the national and local headlines that are bearing down on people. The cooling housing market enters the great deceleration. Home prices decelerate as the housing market downshifts. Buying a home at the wrong time can backfire big time. These are the headlines that are, sort of pummeling consumers right now about the housing market. And certainly we are in a decelerating time right now. We will not see the appreciation going forward that we've seen in the past. And that's a good thing, right? If we get honest with ourselves, many of us, that are in the business have said, we cannot continue to see appreciation like we've seen over the last 24 months. And so that is a good thing. And, oh, by the way, like Kate just talked about, we want to see more inventory in the market, and, sort of this frenzy to subside, and rising interest rates certainly are moderating the market. But I think our message right now needs to be that decelerating home prices do not mean depreciating home prices. Price reductions and certainly things like that are dominating our business, and many people talking about them. But a decelerating environment means there's not as much appreciation as what we've seen in the past. And I'm going to go into just a minute what that means from forecasters. But the analogy I always love to use on this is, in this picture here, you've got a road that kind of goes off and sort of, you can't see around the corner up there. I'm not sure that's exactly a corner, but you can't see around the bend. And maybe there's an officer sitting up there, and you're flying down this highway doing, well over the speed limit, maybe you're doing 100 miles an hour close to it, and you have to slow down when you see that officer up there, or you get a ticket. So you slow down to around 60 miles an hour, the speed limit 65, whatever it is. It feels like you're going a lot slower. That's the analogy I would use in this market every time I talk to somebody about what's happening with prices. Because deceleration is very different from depreciation. A price reduction is very different from depreciating home values. We're in a time right now as the market shifts where a lot of people have priced their homes aspirationally. And there are a lot of sellers right now that haven't adjusted to that market. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but when you're priced aspirationally, you're trying to catch the market, and the market shifts, you're going to have to make a price reduction. And the reality is that home was likely overpriced to start with. Pricing right is critical in today's market. Now let's look at the difference between deceleration and depreciation, because all the forecasters we see are calling for appreciation. The average of those forecasters, 8.5%. Now, I think this is an important point that we need to focus in on. Forecasters are calling for appreciation, but we have to really understand why they're calling for appreciation. I'm going to get into that here in just a couple of slides. But when you look across from Fannie, Freddie, CoreLogic, all of these forecasters, the average of 8.5% appreciation, not what we saw last year, tremendous appreciation. We said, gosh, this feels too hot. And coming in this year with something a little bit more normal. Now, these forecasts started the year at about 5%. They've ratcheted up. They've kind of settled in here right about 8%. You know, if you remember on the monthly market, we've called for between 8 and 10% appreciation, but you're seeing that moderation through rising interest rates. Price will always be determined by supply and demand, and that's the why that we have to get into. So this is the up-to-date forecast for this year, this calendar year. Next, I want to look at home price expectation survey. If you've been listening to the monthly market report for some time, you know that we use the home price expectation survey. This is 100 economists, housing market experts, those in the know with housing across this country, that they survey every quarter and they say, what do you see for appreciation this year and the 4 years ahead that make kind of a 5-year window? And you can see it right here from the home price expectation survey, 9.3% appreciation, sort of in line with what we saw in the other forecasters, 8.5%, 9.3%, that 9% range. And then 4.34% as you see in the years going forward. So my message right now, based on what experts are saying, is we're likely to see a good appreciation in housing this year. You know, the average going back 3.8% in residential homes across this country in appreciation, and in 23, 24, 25, looking at more normal appreciation. So I want to address here for just a couple of minutes the why behind this, because I would be very careful. Again, I'm going to go with what I said before. We're going through a very technical explanation, data-driven explanation. This is an emotional topic for people. There's been a video circulating around from Dave Ramsey where he talks about the number of people in the market and why homes aren't going to lose value. And it's very compelling. It's been shared by a lot of people. Maybe you've seen it. If you haven't, you can go look it up. But I pulled a quote out of that video, and he says this, because I think it's very important for us to listen to. The root issue of what drives house prices is almost always supply and demand. Agree 1,000%. Goes on to say, now interest rates affect that. That's true too. When interest rates go up, guess what? Fewer buyers. Exactly what we're seeing right now. The demand goes down, thus prices are going to soften or not be as cray-cray, his word there, as they have been. And that's a good thing. And that's what we're seeing right now. I don't think there's a better summation of what drives the market and what's happening right now. So I want to give you two graphics that I think do a tremendous job of visually conveying why experts are calling for home price appreciation when many think, gosh, this doesn't sound good. The economy is slowing down. We've seen tremendous appreciation the last couple of years. Can't sustain this, all the things that come out, and gosh, we're going to end up in a bad situation. So let's break this down. What he says, the root issue that always drives house prices is supply and demand. Okay. So first, let's cover supply. This is a little bit different take. I've kind of cleaned it up. Our research team built this for, single family housing units completed going all the way back to the 70s. Everything in the blue there, it's every year, the number of single family housing units brought to market is pre 2008. Everything before the housing crisis. In the bar there, the average annual units completed referenced the 50-year average in the number of homes brought to market. So for the last 14 years, the gray bars right there, we have been below the 50-year average in the number of builds brought to market. And there are reasons for that. I'm not going to go into that deep today, but if you've watched the monthly market report, 2008, our business is at the center. Builders are at the center of that, and they get wiped out. They have to go find something else to do to feed their family. They have to figure out some other vocation in a lot of cases, and they got out of the business. And oh, by the way, the demand just wasn't there, and we haven't been bringing those units to market. So we know we're undersupplied. There've been, millions of homes thrown around out there of how much we're short in this country. And there's a lot, it's a big, big topic, but this graphic will give people sort of a picture of what that actually looks like. And we certainly this year, builders are bringing units to market. We will surpass the 50-year average. They're trying to bring this back. But they can't do it overnight. That's what's in the rearview mirror. All right. So that is the supply side. What's driving demand? And this is a graphic that I think you can use to communicate demand. I'm going to give you a couple of key statistics that are in here. As always, in all these slides, in the notes, these links to these reports there, you can go in and read them and really, really understand them. All right, the demand side is driven by the size of the millennials that are moving through the market. I've isolated here in blue the millennial generation, largest generation behind the baby boomers, just a little bit behind in sheer size of the generation, but they're moving through the peak home buying years. And this is kind of this graphic right here, this little box I drew, the peak home buying years. According to NAR in their recent home buyer survey, 81% of first-time home buyers fall in this category, in this age range. 43% of all buyers fit in this category. So tremendous demand, tremendous volume coming from those that want to buy, driven by the millennial generation. So let's go back and review. We have these two graphics. We have the one here that shows we have a lack of supply that's been coming to market for the last 14 years. Now, builders are trying to do that. And we have tremendous demand right here in millennials and people that are moving through their peak home buying years. That sort of gives a word picture to what Dave Ramsey said in that video and the quote that we use. And I think all that leads up to this last slide here. Experts don't believe the market is in a bubble or crashes in the cards like during the Great Recession. And I think we're starting to see that, certainly in folks on the news and articles and things like that, even people outside of our business saying this is way different from 2008. But they still go on to say the nation is still suffering from a housing shortage that has reached crisis proportions at a time when many millennials are reaching the age when they consider homeownership. Absolutely true. And that is keeping upward pressure on prices. I think that explanation, and I'm gonna stop sharing here for just a minute. Being sound in that explanation and having the confidence of that information is what we have to do. But we have to acknowledge this is an emotional conversation. This is an emotional fear that many people have right now out in the real estate market, right? Nobody wants to buy something that's going to be worth less. And that's what people fear in today's market. I think we can be the educators. We can help them make wise decisions. And I'll end on this. I'm not suggesting that we're not in a market that's not going to be difficult or there's not going to be challenges, because there will be, no doubt. I think this market is more difficult, certainly, than what we've seen in the last couple of years in a big way. But I'll say this, there are a lot of folks in the last couple of years that found it impossible to go out and buy a home. They dropped out of the process because they either, couldn't win out on a bid, couldn't, multiple offer scenarios, all those things that we saw happening. They just said, you know what, we're not going to do it. And they felt like, the dream of homeownership was out of reach. It certainly costs more right now. It is more difficult, but it's not impossible. Kate mentioned we're seeing inventory come back in the market. I think we're going to continue to see that. And certainly our job right now is to educate buyers and sellers, but more specifically right now, buyers on the opportunity that's ahead and always take into consideration how they feel about it. So as always, we are grateful for the time, energy that you.
All right. You guys have any aha moments, anything you want to share, thoughts that you had during the video? Did you take good notes? You guys have anything you want to interject into there? Do you think he's correct? Do you think he's wrong?
No, I think he's right.
All right.
Is this nationwide or is this California specific?
Well, this is nationwide, but it reverberates through California as well. So it's not the exact numbers. I kind of shared our local numbers in the beginning of the conversation today. Altos reports will break it all the way down to zip codes, but the general message here with the economists and what is going to happen all applies to us as well. Probably we're going to be faring much better than other areas of the country as well. But there's no crash coming. It's not going to happen. And just lean into this information to help educate your clients. You can literally download the slides. You can do some social graphics around it. So all that's in there. Did somebody else start talking? I want to hear what you have to say.
This is Jody. I did hear some things about the millennial, and I've been telling my clients that's part of the reason why the prices are high and that we're staying high because of the millennial. So I'd already heard some of that. So he just like said it again. So it's just makes it more come to life. And now there's slides to back it up.
Yeah, and I mean, then in the numbers I shared with you guys, we only have 1.9 months of inventory, guys. That's not very much inventory. I mean, 2 weeks is really bad because you all knew you had a bunch of buyers and we couldn't get them a house. I remember having 6 buyers in my car for like 4 months trying to figure out where we're going to find a house for them, right? And now it's decelerating. It's not a cliff. It's decelerating because we had an anomaly market the last 2 years. COVID did something to people, made them go crazy. They could move anywhere they wanted because they could remotely work. All this stuff was going on and interest rates happened to be, it was a perfect storm, right? Interest rates happened to be really low and it just went gangbusters. We are getting back to normal markets. You saw that in the earlier slides, 2017, 18, 19. We're about 5.3, 5.6 million homes being sold. And now we're projected to be at about 5.3 this year. Decelerating prices. It's cooling down from the BS crazy market we had, which was great for all of us, by the way. And many of us made a good amount of money. But now we're getting back to normal. We're getting back to normal. Your clients don't understand this though. So like you said, and some people still have 2008 on their mind. I think some of your clients might have mentioned the crash, the Great Recession, those kind of things that happened. Again, even in that market, there's opportunity for buyers if you have the money, right? But that's not going to happen. So taking this, maybe watching the video a couple times, looking at the slides, picking up some social graphics, getting out into conversation with your clients is going to be so much better. We must educate, as he said. Anybody else have any input?
Yeah, I do. I like that in one of his slides where he showed back from 1980, all the different recessions that we've had, backed up exactly a conversation I had with Josh probably over a month ago when he was talking about, yeah, the rates are going up and everything, and obviously no crystal ball, but generally speaking, when we go into a recession, and if that is what ends up happening, rates go down. And, and then we're back to potentially, like say rates do go down in, a year from now or whatever, then your buyers are like, great, rates are low again, but now it could be 2021 all over again where it's multiple offers because everybody's coming back in and joining, like why not get in now and then worry about refinancing later? Again, there's no guarantee, but
no guarantees, but and you know what? Interest rates aren't really that high. I mean, some people, because they got punched in the belly, maybe earlier this year where they were in flow of buying a home and then it went up on them. They're like, new buyers entering the market who have to buy. By the way, there's always going to be people dying. There's always going to be people divorcing. There's always going to be people that need a bigger place and literally need a bigger place. There's going to be reasons why people have to move. There's no speculators in the market. There might be speculator buyers, and those are the guys lowballing everything right now. So they're speculating that the market's going to crash. So therefore, they're writing offers that are going to indicate that situation. Your education point around that when you are working with a buyer, not necessarily a speculator buyer, is show them what's going on, show them these slides, show them that the market is teed up to actually appreciate once the market it's adjusting. The market needs to adjust because we had this has never happened, what happened in the last 2 years, right? It just hasn't happened. It was crazy. So now we're having some other kind of weird things that's never happened just to get back to normal. And it's just the process. Now, all of this will pass. This too shall pass. And we may have less sales until that time, but we can do our best as professionals to educate. I wanted to show you these social graphics that are available in Keeping Current Matters. Maybe something you guys would like to, dip into, use on your social media, get it out there and start educating. Maybe even there's some things that you can send people in emails, text them things. There's, all of this is in here. There's a lot of education in here as well. So just wanted to show you that. We'll make sure that we get the sign in onto Hey Siri, so you guys will have access to that. Hold on, guys. I need to stop sharing here for a second and then go back into my slides, hopefully. Hang on. We're almost done, guys. Almost done. All right, let me get over to the slide I want to go to now. Just some reminders to you guys for your own selves. Let me see if I can share. Come on. Sorry, guys. This thing is acting funky today. All right, we're going to go here and there. No, didn't share. There it is. All right, so I'm back to the number one slide, but I want to just go through some quick things here before we wrap. We only have a couple minutes. And can you guys see this?
Yeah.
You can see the screen?
Yes.
Whoops, whoops, whoops. What do you guys see? Do you see the slides?
No, the link to the slides.
Okay, hold on a second. I had a feeling that was going to happen. Let me go back in and open them up properly. Wow, what's going on here? Hang on. All right, there they are. All right, can you see the slides now?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so just some reminders to you guys. Focus on what you have control over. So how to combat your own fear, uncertainty, and doubt in this market. Focus on what you have control over. So the only thing you guys have control over is your activities and getting the education you need so you can educate your market, right? And being relentless in your follow-up calls, being very consistent. Get the mindset of consistency. You guys are going to have to work harder to get the buyers who will allow you to educate and move forward, or to get those buyers that will do anything they need to do to buy a house. There's going to be people that are going to be on the sidelines. They already are. You guys are feeling it in your wallets, right? Time block and spend more time on this. You guys have to do it. Have meaningful conversations, meaning, hey, talk to them about their fears, talk to them about the market, educate them on what's going on, do more buyer consultations than you've ever thought of. Get people in so you can make them feel good about the decisions of moving forward with buying a home now versus later. Add new people to your database. We're going to be pretty soon, we're working on a 90-day boot camp. Tristan's involved, and oh gosh, I can't remember his name, Dan from, I forget the lender, but he's amazing. And we're going to be working on a 90-day boot camp for you guys. And so we're really excited about that. It's an immersion for all the new agents coming out of onboarding, and any agent that wants to really get their focus and get their business really rocking for the rest of the year. So being very clear about your own goals, you guys. Where do you want to go? If you're clear about your goals and you know where you want to go, the market has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with you and what you do about it. Okay. So committing to it is what you need to do. Commit to everything that you do to drive your own goals, and it will happen for you despite what's happening in the market. Upgrading your skills, reasons to reach out, price changes that are happening, getting a hold of your buyers, letting them know that prices are coming down. It's a great time for them to get out. Actually, I think interest rates even dropped a little bit last week. I don't know where they are this week. Potentially more choices, potentially less competition, creative home loans going on, meet and go over the market changes that are happening, educate, educate, educate. All right. I'm not going to go through all these. Buyers and sellers are seeking good advice in this market, you guys. Social media posts are best for dropping market knowledge and tips for buyers and sellers. You can still use humor, as I said before, but the social media posts that I see about, the crazy seller that chased me down the street with a stick, I mean, I just think that's just dumb stuff right now. We need to really get serious. And obviously you can do it with humor, but we need to do this. We need to make sure that we're getting it out there. That's the millennials are looking at this stuff, right? Go back to your follow-up boss and find the buyers who quit the market last year. I think they even mentioned that in the video. Dig those people out. Offer to educate. Tell them what's going on in the market. Help them to understand that the fear doesn't have to be there. And most of all for you, you need to stay fearless. Okay. So that's all I have for today. Sorry, we went over by 2 minutes. Does anybody have any input or questions before we say, have a great day?
Thank you, Tina.
All right. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, Tina.
Thanks, Tina.
Bye.
Bye.